Hello guys, this is Tayo. Now this is a recap of the last lecture we had, the data analytics class, the last lecture we had. So because the recording didn't come out well, so I've decided to, make the video from the scratch. Now I might mix out on some things I said in the lecture, but then this video will still be enough to, to complement the last lecture. Now, so what we did in the last lecture, we talked about Power Query. So, and I told you that Power Query is a Microsoft tool that allows you to get data from wide range of sources, then transform this data and load it to a base, which is either Excel or Power BI. What does that mean? When I talk about base that is either Excel or Power BI, is that you can only access Microsoft Excel, you can only access Power Query through Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Power BI. These are the only tools for now, as far as I can tell, that you can access Power Query from. Now, whichever one you decide to use is and it entirely depends on what you plan to achieve. Now, if you want to pull up a data, or you want to or you want your end result to be in Excel, or you want to be able to refer to your data set with other tools, I would advise you use Microsoft Excel to access Power Query. Now, if your end result is just going to be used for a dashboard visualization in Microsoft Power BI, then you can as well just access Power Query through Microsoft Power BI. So either way you choose is really okay, depends on you. But in this video, we are going to access Power Query through Excel because we want the end result to be in Excel so that we can then, use the data set in other tools or other programming languages or whatever it is. So what we want to do in this video, or what we did in the last lecture, we went to an internet, to a website. We retrieved the current data, the current COVID-19 data. We pull it into Power Query, did some transformation. We also pulled data from another website which contains countries and their continents. Then we also pull data from Wikipedia where we get the COVID-19 vaccination. So this is just the same thing I'll be doing in this video. So what we're going to do first is go to the website. Now I already have the website opened, but in your own case, you just have to navigate to your desired website. Then when you get to your website, all you just need to do is select the URL bar. When everything is selected, Ctrl C to copy. Then you come back to your Excel file. Now this is a new work file, by the way, but you can use an existing work file, which is still okay. So when you come to your data ribbon, you see get data. Then from this get data, you can see that, just like I said earlier, that Power Query can get data for you from wide range of sources. For instance, you can see that you can get data from files, which is workbook. Workbook is just Excel file. Then from text or CSV, XML, JSON, PDF from folder. Then in our next lecture or something, I'm going to tell you how to use getting data from folder, how to make use of it to enhance your techniques. So, but in this case, we are going to get data from web. But I just want you to know that Power Query can get data from almost anywhere. So now let's just go straight to get data from web. When you select this, all right, so is Excel is now asking us for the URL of the website. Remember, we just copied the URL, so you paste the URL here, then you click OK. Now you wait while Excel access this website. So depending on your network and your laptop speed, so this takes time or not. So we're just going to wait few seconds or few minutes or few hours depending on your network and your system to allow Excel to populate the data from this website. All right, now that your data has been populated, Power Query will give you access to preview this data before you upload them into the Power Query. So you can go ahead to, mostly when you see document, it's mostly not the data set you want. So you go ahead and preview these tables and see which one it is you want. In this case, these tables 0, 1, and 2 are almost the same thing, but I'm just going to pull these two because it is the latest one from the website. So when you click the table, you go ahead and click transform. Now you can easily click load if you are certain that the data set is well structured, clean, and normalized for data analysis. But if you know, if you're certain that you still have some things to change about the data, this is when you now click the transform data, then you go into Power Query, then you do some stuff. So we're going to click transform now, and this will now take us to Power Query. So far we've not been to Power Query. Now you see this is the Power Query editor. All right. So now let's start with renaming this from, we don't want table 2. So let's start with giving it a name. So you can do that by changing it here or double clicking it here. Everything is still the same thing. So because I've selected this, that is why the error came up. So but you can always double click this if you've not selected this to rename your data. So you're going to call this COVID oh sorry. So we're going to call this COVID-19. Yeah, let's just call it COVID-19. Then you click OK. Now a brief introduction to Power Query interface. As you can see, the interface is almost like that of Microsoft Excel or Word. So, but we just have four ribbons: the home, the transform, the add column, and the view. So most of the things you will do will mostly be in the home, okay, transform and add column. But these are when we want to do some advanced transformation. But so far, the home is where you can, delete columns, remove rows, change data type, merge queries, and append queries. These are two powerful functions in Power Query. Then you can also get more data from new source or recent source and so on. Then from the transform, this is where you do the transpose, you do some settings. Some of these settings you can as well do in the home page, but I just want you to know that um, getting familiarized with the interface is very important. The add column is where you bring in another column. We have now, if you come down left, you see we have 15 columns and 246 rows. What this is telling you is that, okay, that's straightforward by the way, but you can now add new column if you need to. Then you can do some, conditional column and so on. We'll get there by the way, but maybe not in this lecture. So we just want to focus on normalizing this data sets. Now let's start with the first column. If you notice, you see null in these places, then you see the ones with serial number. Now what this is saying is that from the website, we okay, let's go back to the website to have a preview. So from the website, notice we have the country, which is USA, Indian, France, and so on. Then if you notice here, we have Europe, North America, the continent actually. Now what has happened here is that when Power Query wanted to pull this data, Power Query included the information of this continent as countries. So this is why you see in the Power Query, you see world, you see Europe, you see Asia, North America, and the rest. So, but we don't need them. We just need the countries. Now you notice that only the countries has the serial number. So other ones are just the null, no, no. So what we're going to do here is we just go into this drop down and uncheck the null. But before I do this, I want to take, I want to point your notice. I want you to take notice of this place in Excel in Power Query. This is the applied step. So what this place allows you to always go back to how your data looks like before you perform any changes. So this, the moment you start making transformation to your data set, Power Query will record your steps. So that enables you to always go back to a certain period to know, or preview how your data looks like before you did any other things. So now when I remove this null, I want you to take notice of this place. Something will come up here. So we're just going to open this, then we remove the null, then we click OK. So you see a step has been applied that says filtered rows. Now if you made a mistake, maybe you didn't want to remove the nulls, you can always go back and delete it so your data go back to how it looks like before. But in our case, we want to remove the null. All right. Now I just noticed that we don't even need this column at all. This particular column, we don't need the serial number because Power Query has its own standard serial number. So we are going to delete this. As a matter of fact, we are going to delete some other columns as well. So there are many ways or few ways to delete columns. One is you can just select this and say remove columns. If you need to remove more than one column, you can hold your Control and Alt on your keyboard. Then you select multiple columns. Then when you select the columns you want to remove, then you can right click, remove, or you can just click remove here. Mostly anything you can do from the ribbon, you can mostly do them with a right click. Now I like to use the right click because it is faster. All right. So another way to delete columns is to come to choose columns. Now when you come to choose column, this way you can just select the columns you want. Now these are all the columns in the table. So you can unselect all at first. Then you start selecting the ones you want. So we can start with the country. We don't want the serial number. So we want the total cases. We don't want the new cases. We want the total debt. We don't want the new debt. We want total recovered. We don't want new recovered. We want active cases. Then we don't, okay, maybe we want serious and critical. We don't want total cases per million. Then we want total test made. Then we want the population of this country. So I think we've selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 columns. So it means we are deleting 7 columns. Alright, then you click OK. Then you see a step has been applied. So it's saying remove other columns. So that's what we just did. Now, without deleting a step, you can always go back to previewing how your data looks like before. So when you click filtered rows, for instance, you can see how your data looks like before we apply this step. Then same thing with going back and forth. So now let's come back to yeah, to our data. Now you can decide to rename now, or we can do that later. But then I want you to notice um there's a little snapshot down here. That's so for instance, in the case of country, you see the snapshot is full. This little green color is full. What this means now, when you over this with your mouse, you see the information about that column. Now it's saying you have 230 valid items. That is because we've deleted the null or the continents. So now we have only 230 rows. If you check the bottom left, we have 230 rows. So when you over your mouse on the snapshot, you see something like this that says you have zero error, you have zero empty. So which means your this particular data um is is okay. Same thing with the total cases. Same thing with the total cases. But now when you come to total depth, you see that you have five empty. Now you have five empty. What this is saying is that we have five countries in which the website did not record the debt. So if you may want to check that out, so you can unselect other thing, then just let's see for the no. So when you see click OK, you see these countries. So these are the countries where the total debt are not recorded. So now we call these in data science, we call them outliers. Outliers are missing data. So in most job in most job interview as a data analyst, you might be asked, what do you do with your outliers? Now it depends on the type of data you are working on. Some outliers are very important, some are not. So in case they are not important, you can delete them. In case where you think they are important, you can just replace them with something to just take notice that okay, essentially not delete them, just replace them with whatever that suits your analysis. Now we are going to delete that step. So what we'll do now is this same thing occurs in rest of the columns actually. So what we will do is we will select the all the columns. So we select all the columns, then we will right click, or if you don't want to right click, from the home ribbon you see something called replace values. So when you click the replace values, so we want to replace null. Now please mind you, Power Query is case sensitive. If you notice, this is the null we want to remove, not just in this column actually, in all the columns. Now this is how the null is written. Everything is written in low caps. So if you go ahead to type this, Power Query will not you know find this value. So if you go ahead to type this, Power Query will not find your value. So it has to be in the smaller caps. So we are telling Power Query now to value to find is not. This is just like when we use the Control H in our Microsoft Excel um, to replace data or value. So we are going to replace them with a zero. So what we are saying is that in all these columns, wherever you say null, replace them with zero. Now this way it will say that there is no debt or there is no test or there is no depending on the column. But this is better than having null, because when we have null, it will affect our data in the future. So we have to get rid of that null, which is called outliers. So we replace them with null. So if you think the outliers are not important, you can actually delete them. But in this case, I don't want to delete them. So that's why I'm replacing them with null. All right. So we click OK. Now, when you go back to the snapshot, you notice that all of the snapshots are now, they are kind of have a full bar, which indicates that our data are now, perfect, so to say. All right. So the next thing we want to do is we want to know the continent of this um we want to know the continent of these countries. So we want to know, so eventually when we want to analyze this data, we want to know which country is more affected, which country has add more death or something like that. So we need to get the countries of this data set. Now we don't have them. So we can go back to the internet and look for a website where we can see countries, the country names, and their corresponding continents. So in real world, you may want to, you know, locate this website. But in my own case, I have the website saved already. It took me a while to get this website actually. They're the only one that have it in this format, in this preferred format. So this is the data set we want to pull from this website. So once again, we are going to copy the URL, come back to our data. So we can now go to new source, or if you want to pull data from the same website we just pull data from, so you can come to recent source. So you go back to that website, but this time around we want to go to the new source. So you select other source. This is where you find your web. So once again, you go to the web, then you paste the URL just like we did in the first one. You click OK and wait for Excel Power Query to access the website, then populate the data set. All right. Now the data set is populated. So once again, you can preview. Okay, still loading. All right. So once again, you can preview the countries or the data set before you pull them into Power Query, so that you do this always because you don't want to pull the wrong data. So I think these are data. This is what we want: the country, the region, region one, region two, and continent. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this. Then come back to my Power Query and wait for the data to be populated. All right. So you can see the first one is our COVID-19 and the second one is our countries and areas. So we may want to rename these as countries and continents. Remember I told you you can rename by just double clicking. So we can say countries and continents. All right. Sorry. Okay. So now we have our countries and our continents. So what I want to do first is, just like we did for the first data, I want to remove this column, but then I also want to remove other columns as well. So I want to remove this, I want to remove region. Okay, I think I'm going to keep region 1 or not. Okay, let's just keep this. Let's keep this. Let's keep the country code. Let's keep the continent. So these are the 3 columns we are going to keep in this table. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click, then I'm going to say remove other columns. What this means is that it will remove the columns that we've not selected. Now if you click remove columns, this will remove the columns that you selected, but if you click remove other columns, this will remove other columns that are not selected. All right, now good. So what we want to do now is use the merge function to merge the countries in the countries and continents table to the countries in the COVID-19 table. Then this is just like, then we can now extract the continent from it. This is just like if you are familiar with the SLOOKUP, VLOOKUP or SLOOKUP function, this is just the same concept. So we are going to go to the countries and continents, look for this country that are similar to the countries in the COVID-19 table, then bring out the corresponding continent. So now we select the COVID-19, Then we'll come to merge and query, merge queries. Now you can select merge query, which means that the margin we will do will occur in this table, or you can select merge query as new, which means that a new table will be created where the two tables will now be merged together. So in this case, we are going to select merge query as name. So when you select merge query as name, then you come to these settings where it says, where it's asking for. Now our primary table can be anything, or the left table. So, but let's make our left table the COVID-19, then the secondary table to be countries and continents. Now, in what is the matching area or the matching column? So, our matching column will be countries here, then countries here. Now, let me explain the join kinds. For people who are familiar with SQL, they may understand this or not. Now, for people who are familiar with SQL, who are also having the joins, who are having trouble understanding the type of joins in SQL, this is also a good example to learn the difference. Now, the left outer, according to what is written here, is that all from first, matching from second. Now, what that means is that this is the first table, this is the second table. Now, in SQL, this is the left, this is the right. So if you want to keep to Power Query terminology, this is the first table, this is the second table. But I'm just saying left and right for people who find this difficult in SQL. Now this is the left table, which is the first table. This is the right table, which is the second table. Now what this is saying, the left outer, is that all the countries in the first table will be populated, whether they are found in the second table or not. So the first table is the priority. So what this thing will do is populate all the countries in this first table, then match it with countries in this second table. So if a country is found here and it is not found here, the countries here will still be populated regardless, but the corresponding continent will not be found. So that's the meaning of left outer. It is prioritizing the left table, which is the top table. Then the same thing for right outer. Right outer is just the reverse of left outer. So that means that the second table will be prioritized. That is, everything from this table will be populated, whether they are found in the first table or not. Then the full outer means the two tables will be populated. That is, things that are found here that are not found here will still be populated. Things that are found there that are not found here will still be populated. So I hope this is clear. Now, a good example of this is that in this table, in the first table, the COVID-19 table, we have USA written as USA. Now, in the second table, we have USA written as United States of America. Now, in this case, regardless of whether we use left or right outer, so when we use left outer, USA will be populated because USA is here and USA is not here, but USA will be populated nevertheless. Now, when we use the right outer, what is here is United States of America. So what will be populated is United States of America. So when we use the full outer, USA will be populated, United States of America will be populated. Now, when you use the inner join, inner mashing, or I like to call it inner join because that is what you call it when you get to SQL. So the inner join, what that one does is that it will only match, or only countries that are in the two tables will be populated. So in the case of US, since US is only in this table and not in this table, US will not be populated. Then since United States of America is only in this table and not in this table, United States of America will not be populated. Only countries that are found in this table and in this table will be populated. So that would delete the other countries that are in either tables but not in both tables. I hope that is clear. Now left hand side is okay. Left hand side will just match the countries that are in this table but are not in this table. I don't know if you get me. Now, there are countries in this table, in the first table, that are not in this table. So when you use left hand side, all the countries that are in this table but not in this table will be populated. So we have about seven or so. So all the countries that are here that are not here will be populated. So it's about seven or so. Same thing with right out. All the countries that are here that are not here will be populated. But in our cases, this table is our priority, the COVID-19 table, because that's where we have all our information, the total deaths, the total recovered, and everything. So these are priority, these are primary table, and all we want to do is merge the continent of these countries from this country. So we are going to use left outer. Now, if I had selected countries and continent here, then COVID-19 here, now I've swapped the table, then I will need to use the right outer because now I want to prioritize the second table. I hope with this explanation it is very very clear the difference between the joins. So I'm just going to go back and make this our first table. It does not make any difference actually. So I'm just going to go back and make this a table. Then I'm going to select the left outer. Alright, so now another thing I want to bring your attention to is the fusing machine um, um, technique. So normally the default is not using fusing machine. And what fusing machine will do, so when you select fusing machine, what this will do is that it will it will look at your data set, and look for when you don't check the fusing machine, it means you are looking at exact match. So where you see, for instance, United States, let's say United States is here, then United States of America is here. Without checking the fusing match, it will not pick the two countries. It will not see the two countries as one. But when you use the fusing machine, then it will relax the exact match, then try to see if these two countries can be similar. So United States and United States of America, then with fusing machine, the part where you can now pick the countries together. I hope you understand that. So there are a little bit of settings to do. So when you check the using fusing machine to perform, all right, normally we should be seeing the machine. Let me select again. Okay. So what the fusing machine will do is the threshold is what I want to bring your notice to. The threshold normally is between 0 and 1. So when you don't check this, the threshold is automatically set as 0.80. That is the when you don't check this, the threshold is at 1, which means the the two data or anything in the first table must be the exact thing in the second table. So for instance, if you have Brazil here, then you have Brazil with Z, then you have Brazil with S in this table, for instance, it will not pick it. But now when you use the fusing match, the threshold will be reduced to 0.80. That's the default of the threshold when you check the fusing match. So when you check the fusing match, it will bring flexibility to the threshold or to the matching criteria. So then you can reduce this based on how you feel. Now the only reason I'm going to reduce this to maybe 0.70 is because some of these countries in the COVID-19 table are not written exactly the same way in the country or in the countries and continents table. So for instance, in one of the table we have South Korea written as, that's the COVID-19 table. We have it written as S. Korea. Meanwhile, in this, we have it written as Korea something else. So this little thing can affect how the tables are matched. So let's reduce the threshold to 0.70. All right. Before, okay, let's select the tables so that we can see the matching. Um, okay, this will explain it better. Now, without the fusing machine, let me just let you see the numbers of machine that will be, so it's estimating matches based on data preview. So let's see how many matches we'll be able to get. Remember, we have 230 rows. Sorry, let me delete this. All right, so without the fusing match, we have 193 of 230 rows match. This means that out of the 230 countries here, only 193 countries from this other table is matched or is the same with the countries here, which means we have about 37 countries that will not be populated, that will not get the continent. Now, when we use the fusing machine, let's see, it has increased to 201. Now, I told you that the default threshold is 0.80. So when we reduce the threshold to 0.70, let's see if anything will change. Now we have 209. Now you need to be careful with the threshold, because if you reduce the threshold too low, or if you set the threshold too low, you may your data integrity may reduce. You may now have countries merging together, countries where the names are a little bit similar, then matching to different continents. So you need to be careful, especially in the case of when it is not a continent. Maybe you want to get um um the maybe you want to get information for your particular customer. Now, when two customers have similar names, then you reduce the threshold, you may get wrong information for different customers. So you have to be careful with how you use your threshold, please. But in this case, we are just going to leave it at 0.70. I told you it is between 0 and 1. So 1 is the highest, 0 is the lowest. The higher the threshold, the strict it becomes. The lower the threshold, the more flexible it becomes. So that's just it. So now I'm going to click OK. So don't forget what we're trying to do is bring the continent here to this table. Now in this table we don't have the continent. In this table we have the continent. So we want to bring the continent here to this place. So we now click OK. Then now we have our new table. It's saying match 1. So in this country now, when you move in this table, when you now move to the extreme right, you are going to see your countries and continents table, but it's saying table. Meanwhile, what you need there is the continent. So you need to expand the table or the column. So when you expand, these are all the um, columns in that table. So you are going to select the ones you want to bring in to this table. Now in this case, we just want the continent. Then you notice this little information here. Use original column name as preface. What this is saying is that if you check it, the name of the column will now be countries and continent dot continent. So let's say you pick this table too. The name of this column in this new table will now be countries and continent dot country or area. So something like that. So I make it an habit to always uncheck this. So depending on how you want it. So in this case, we just want the continent. So we are going to expand the continent now and uncheck the use original column name as prefix. All right, and click OK. Good. Now you can see that some countries were found, some countries were not. In the case of United States was not found. So you're saying this is USA, this is the continent was not found. All right. Now, depending on the importance of your data, because this is just for the purpose of teaching, I will just leave it this way. But if what you're doing is very, very important, you need to go ahead and rename USA to United States of America, or rename United States of America in this table to USA. Basically, you just want the two countries to have the same name in different tables. So either rename this to United States of America, or rename United States of America in the other table, which is this table, to USA. So let me show you. It is written as all right, United States of America. So this is it. So this is why it is written as USA in the first table, United States of America in the second table. So this is why the margin is not, it did not pick the margin. Even though we reduce the threshold to 0.70, I think the difference in the name is just too big to match. Now, like I said, if this was an important work, you may want to rename the countries that are not matched. So in our match one, the countries that are not matched, where the continents are not found, like this, you may want to rename them. Okay, this one is UK. Now in the other table it is United Kingdom. So in this case it's saying UK. So these are the things you can do in your own case. But in this case, for the purpose of our time and for the purpose of lecture, I'm just going to leave it. Now what I would do is I will rename this null instead of deleting them, because if I decide to remove this null, it means I'm removing USA and its entire information about the COVID-19. So all I'm going to do is right click on this, then I can say replace values. So when I say replace values, I can type null. Remember I told you that Power Query is case sensitive. Then I'm going to replace this as other continent or others. I'm just going to replace it as others for the purpose of this lecture. If I was doing this in a real case scenario, I would have renamed USA or United States of America to USA, or USA to United States of America. Same thing with UK to United Kingdom, or United Kingdom to UK. Alright guys, so now that we are done with this, we may want to rename this as, okay, let's just leave it for now. So we've gotten the countries and we've gotten the continent. Let me move the continent towards the country name so that we can easily see. Alright, now let the country comes first. Okay, now another thing I want us to get from the work is the COVID-19 vaccination. Notice that so far we have the total cases, total death, total recovered, active cases. Then I think we have the population as well. Okay, serious, critical stages, and population. So what I think we should add more to this data set to complete it is the vaccination. Now the vaccination is from another website, and that's Wikipedia. I have it saved already. I did that because I don't want us to waste time on navigating through to the website. Okay, so this is the website, and this is, I'm trying to locate the, okay, this is the data. This is COVID-19 distribution, vaccine distribution by country. So we want to put this data as well to our data set. Remember, you just click it, select everything, then Control C for copy, then come to your Power Query click new source, other source, which is where you find your web. Then wait for the URL option to pop up, then paste it, OK, and wait for Excel to, you know, browse through the website. All right, so we are going to wait and allow Excel to populate the data so that we can preview and load them. All right, now that our data is populated, remember you can always preview the data because before pulling it into Power Query. Now, depending on the website, what you have here depends on the website. Some website they have hidden tables in the code, so this is why you see a lot of tables in this case. But what we want here is the first one, which is the COVID-19 distribution by country. All right. Then when you selected it, remember you can always pull more than one table at once because you can check this select multiple items, and you go ahead to select more than one. But in this case, remember we just want one, so we don't even need this checked. So just select this, then click OK, and wait for our data to be populated. All right. The reason you keep saying this is because we've done this like 4 days ago, and it's saying because Power Query recognize this website. That's why you see the 4 days ago. All right. So let's quickly rename this before we proceed. Let's just call this vaccination so that we can differentiate the tables from each other. Now we want to delete the first one. In fact, we want to delete this and this. We want to remove these two columns, the selected ones. Now you see our first row here is saying location and vaccinated. So what we want to do is make sure that the first, okay, what we want to do is remove the location, the word, location and the word, because we want to remove these two rows because we don't need them. We want for the countries, not the total vaccination, the word total vaccination. So we want to remove the United, the word and the location. So basically what we want to do is remove the first two rows. So with the table selected, come to the remove rows. So you see remove top rows, remove bottom rows, remove alternate row, remove duplicate row, remove blank and remove errors. But what we want in this case is remove top rows. So when you select remove top row, it's asking for the number of rows from the top that you want to remove. In this case, we want to remove these two, the first and the second. So you type 2 here. That is, you want to remove the first two columns, the first two rows, then click OK. And this has been removed. Now, just like what we did with the merge in the first, how we got this is the same thing we are going to do now. So we are going to select, we are going to merge this merge one with vaccination to get the vaccinated, the number of vaccination that each country has received. So now we come to merge one, then we select merge query, but this time around we are not going to merge as new, we are just going to merge the information in the vaccination with this current table. So select merge query, then it's asking us for the country, then our first table is the merge one, then our second table is vaccination. So the matching criteria would be the countries. In this case we call it location. So we may want to use the frozen machine again because the countries are still not the same. All right, so remove the, let's reduce it to 0.70 and see. All right, we have 246. Now let's click OK. All right, so just like we did in the last one, we are going to expand this and click only the vaccination, the vaccinated. So we don't need the location. Then this one is already unchecked. So we click OK. Now we have the vaccination. Of course, definitely there are countries we did not get, so which is okay. Then now, if you notice, we started with 230 rows. Now we have 350 columns. This is because of the margin we've done, and most especially because of the fusing machine we did. So the fusing machine has added some rows because where it says South Korea and different Koreas, it has added them. So what we'll do here is come to this merge one, right click and remove duplicate, because what is happening here is that there are some countries that are now populated more than one. For instance, Australia. Now you see that Australia is is in Europe somewhere, and Australia is in, yeah, oceanic somewhere. This is because probably somewhere the Austria is a country in Europe, Australia is a country oceanic, or Australia as a continent. Now, because of the fusing machine we did, it has merged Australia to Europe, merged Australia to oceanic. So this is why I said you must be careful with the fusing machine. So in this case, because I already knew this, otherwise this would have given me a problem in future. But because I already know this is why I can tell. In some cases, you would have gone far with your data set before realizing the mistake. So please, you need to be very, very sure whether you need to use the fusing machine or not. Now, but what the fusing machine has done for us is that on a norm, the fusing machine would not have picked for Korea, but because Korea is written as S dot Korea here and it is written as something Korea in the other table, but it was able to pick the continent because of the fusing machine. Now there is pro and there is cons for the fusing machine, so it depends on you, but please be careful. Now to fix this problem, just right click and remove duplicate. So when you remove duplicate, it's just like what we used to do in Excel where we select and remove duplicate. So remove duplicate, then you go back to having 230 columns, 230 rows rather. So our data is back to original. Now in all these countries, we now have their continent, the total cases, total deaths, active cases, serious, critical, population, and the number of people that have been vaccinated. Now to remove this error, we're going to replace values with um, so wherever you see now, let's replace it with 0 and click OK. Now the last thing we need to do with this data set is the data type. Now data type is very, very important in anything you do in data analytics. Now, especially when you work on Python, SQL, the data types are very, very important, even here in Power Query and Excel. So what we need to do is the countries. Now let's go ahead and rename the country. Instead of country and order, let's just call it countries for now in cap. So countries. Now the data type is correct. It's showing you ABC, which means it is a test. Then same thing for the continent. So let's rename it continent in cap. Then the data type is correct, ABC. Then total cases. Now the data type is also correct because it is 1, 2, 3, which means it's a figure or integer. Now this is the data type here is 1.2, which means it is a float or decimal. So I'm saying float using Python terminology, and I'm saying decimal using Power Query or Power BI terminology. So let's change this to total debt in caps. Then let's change the data type to whole number. So whole number is what we know as integer. where there is no decimal, then we have total recovered. So let's say total recovered. Now this is a B, C, and 1, 2, 3. These we call them variable characters in SQL. So it can be A, B, C, or no. But in this case, we want it to be whole number. It is very, very important that we do this, please. Meanwhile, you can always select multiple data sets to you can always select multiple data sets to determine the to change the data type. All right, let's change it to active cases. For some reasons, um, I just want them in cap. By the way, I'm sure there is a way to do this without doing it one on one. I just think I've forgotten. Population, then vaccinated. All right. So all the ones that we've not changed the data type, let's go ahead and select everything, which is this. Then come to data type and select whole number. All right. So now our data set is almost perfect. All we need to do now is close this data set and load it to our Excel. So, all right. So now let's just come to your close and load, then close and load. Now this will now populate to Excel. All right. Our data is now populated. So all the tables we have in the Power Query will also be populated. But remember, our um our ultimate goal, or what we did, the combine transformation, is the merge one. We forgot to rename it, so let's just leave it as merge one. So whenever you want to refer to this data set, you can always remember the complete one is the merge one. So let's close this, the query connection. Then let's save this workbook because it is new. So I'm just going to save it in um, let me save it in my desktop because there's something I want to show you. So I'm going to save it in my desktop and call it Power Query. All right. So now let me exit. Let me close this, then close everything else. So I want to locate my Power Query file now, and I want to check the size of this data set. So you can see the file is about 76, 73.6. All right. So I want to show you how to reduce the size of this data set, because in real world your data file might be quite larger than that, and depending on the size of this data set, it may slow down your system or your dashboard in Power BI or anywhere else. So let's go ahead and reduce the size of this thing. What we can do is go back to the file, open the file. All right, so let me expand. Now remember, all the data we have in other tables are almost useless to us because we merged them together in this merge one. But then you can't go ahead to delete any of these any of these sheets, because if you do, it will affect the information in this data. But what you can do is come to data, open the query and connection, then go to all the tables you don't need. Remember, we only need this merge one, so we don't need the other three. So come to the first one, right click on it, come to load to, click OK, then change it from table to only create connection, then click OK. So there's an information that will pop up that this query is currently connected to a table in your workbook. Loading the query as connection will delete the table. Do you want to continue? Click yes, click OK. Now what this has done is that it has deleted the table but maintained the connection with the merge one table. So when you look at this place now, you see that it is an empty. When you look at your COVID-19, you see it's an empty sheet now. You can now go ahead and delete the empty sheet. Then let's do the same thing with countries and continents. So right click, load it to connection only, then click OK. Then come to your vaccination, right click, load it to connection only, click OK. Now you can now go ahead and delete the two sheets and delete the sheet one. Alright, so now you only have this in your data set. So you can now save Ctrl S, and let's go back to check the size of this file. Alright, so I'm going to right click on this now, come to properties, and you see that the size has significantly reduced, I think almost by half. So that's it. Now I want to inform you that the good thing about Power Query is that this COVID-19 data set that we pulled out from different websites. Now COVID-19 data is changes almost every day, if not every hour, depending on the website you pulled it from. Now, when you need to, get updated. So in our next lecture, we'll go ahead to use these. Okay, maybe we'll save these. Then we'll go ahead to use it in Power BI to create a report, a dashboard. Now, when we create this dashboard in a week, a month, or even a year's time, when we want to know the um, um, latest figure, for this data set, all you need to do is come to your data. Sometimes, if you click refresh all here, it works with your mobile internet connected though. So when you click refresh, it works. Now refresh all is when you have more than one sheet. So you can click refresh, but if you have more than one sheet, you click refresh all. But sometimes it doesn't. So what you need to do then is go back to Power Query, and now you can go back to Power Queries by clicking queries and connection, which will bring that pane back. Then you can now right click on anyone, then come to edit. So when you come to edit, you go back to Power Query. So from Power Query, you can now perform the refresh. All right. So notice that all the COVID-19 data that we deleted in Excel, they are still in our Power Query. So they are kind of deleted, but not really deleted. So now this is where you can now perform the refresh. So this is why you are seeing this preview may be up to 4 days old. So if you perform refresh, Now, sometimes this takes time, so I'll not do it so that I don't want to waste time. But when you click the refresh and your data is connected, Power Query will go back to the website, pull that data, the current one as it is seen in that website. So whatever is in that website at that moment, Power Query will pull the data back to this place. Now the beauty of it is that if USA has been changed to United States of America in that data set, this thing will change to United States of America, then it will get the corresponding continent for you in our table, provided the same information in this table has not changed. So I need you to understand that whatever changes in the website will affect your data set entirely. So please have that in mind. So that's the beauty of Power Query. Now, when you create a dashboard, you don't really need to come back after a month to look to repeat all these things to get the current information for COVID-19. All you just need to do is refresh your data from Power Query or Excel, then it will automatically affect your dashboard, your charts, your everything you've created in your dashboard will change accordingly. So that's what we did in the last lecture, and I hope this video will help you catch up. So till we meet again in the next lecture, guys. Have a wonderful time. Thank you.